start? Should I do the introduction?
Hi, Dahlia. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, so I just watched your video, your lesson with our students in the life-centered education class. It was on assertive communication, a very appropriate topic for that group of students. So I applaud you for choosing that topic. The first thing you did is that you I believe you read through some scenarios, right?
Right.
Some scenarios of people, interacting, some problems, and then they had to put a sticker on.
If they think it's a proper way to talk.
If they thought if it was proper, okay. So you were basically, it was a nice formative it was a nice way to formatively assess them. Did they think that it was appropriate?
Yes.
Communication. Did they think it was assertive communication? So, a couple of thoughts that I had, and this is actually going to be kind of the theme throughout. Again, this is a great topic, but this was a very teacher-centered lesson. You did probably 90 to 95% of the talking in this lesson. And I would suggest that this lesson could have been much more student-centered. I think if you had set it up, you had the scenarios, which were fantastic. I think one way that you could have done it without reading the scenarios to them is that maybe paired them up and said, you guys, do you two take this, and you're going to be this one, and you're going to be this one, and you're going to act it out for us.
Right, absolutely.
That would have really gotten them involved.
Absolutely right.
And they would have had fun.
Yes.
It would have been, because you had one student that we saw that was extremely active, and then you had a couple of others that were kind of active. You had one that was basically mute. So I think this would have been a way, I don't want to say force them, but it would have been a fun way to involve everybody. You could have even involved the pal down and definitely gotten her with somebody. So that was my, I was like, it was almost a missed opportunity, because it was very good. But you were talking to the students and they were having to comprehend what you were saying. I think it would have stuck more if they had read it themselves, and if they had, go off and take this scenario, read it through together, so that they're talking about it.
Absolutely.
And then take 5 minutes and go prepare something, okay? And then everybody sits back and they watch them interact, and then you say, okay, what was appropriate about this? What wasn't appropriate about it? You know what I mean? I feel like I feel like you could have done that.
Yes. And that's exactly what I was like after seeing the lesson, and after I looked at the whole class. I was like, I was doing a lot. Like even this was trying to give a lot and talking a lot and waiting for a response. I should have done a lot of it's something like let the student interact more with each other. I would do something different. That's what I put it for my next class. So this is because I see it. I see exactly what you're talking about. I was done 95%. I was the one who's doing the talking. I give the information and I ask the question and I answer the question.
Exactly. Right. I mean, and God bless you. You want to be the teacher, and we all want to teach. That's why we're in this profession. But we need to realize that a lot of the teaching, if we're talking, first of all, these kids have ADHD, they've got autism, we're not entirely certain that they're comprehending everything that we're saying. Maybe they're not even listening to what we're saying. And you would ask a question, and then maybe a couple of them would respond. One would definitely respond, and sometimes out of context. But I think if you had structured it that way, I think it would have set it up where even if they didn't want to participate, sorry, this is part of it, Okay. You talked about respect. You talked about some big words, assertive, respect, appropriate, things like that. And that also led me to think, do they know what respect is? Do they have an idea? They probably do, but respect is kind of a big, broad term. So I wondered if I really felt like you could have, it means different things to different kids. So maybe if you had I know this was part of it where you were building up to what is assertive communication.
Right.
But I think that you could have used some visuals. or the big words that you were talking about,
Yes.
maybe have talked about those before you got,
Yeah.
or if you had, if you did have the role playing going, okay, let's talk about respect. What about this situation? Did you see respect? Did you not see respect? I mean, and then you could
More
have
analyze more the word.
right.
Like, go
I
in
think
depths with them.
yeah. I mean, because assertive communication is so broad and there's so many different facets to it. So. Maybe and another thing, if you didn't want to do role playing, and I was thinking about this for the latter activity that you did, you could have pulled up videos. Maybe you could have done a mix of both. I don't know if you want to role play the whole class, but you could have done videos because you used a lot of scenarios, which are great case studies. They're fantastic, but I think the more visual that you would have made it, the more, because again, it was a lot of. And then, sorry, I'm jumping to the end, but there. I mean, you're
No, absolutely right. Because
the beginning
one
and
of
the end were kind of this, very similar,
yes,
right?
yes.
And you had them read it, which their reading comprehension isn't the best. I think this is good practice, but I think maybe if you'd had them read it, or maybe if you'd shown them a video and then had them read some questions and then maybe answer them, but somehow, some way, incorporating them and incorporating more visuals.
Right.
Okay.
I did put this on for my consideration for next class. I did add it. I need to use more video and on my notes, like video and visual aids. That will help a lot for next class. So
Yes, absolutely.
I understand it exactly what you're trying to say. Thank you.
Sure. So let's see. Videos. And you had Muhammad ask what empathy was. Yeah. So that would have taken care of that. I mean, you answered it, and that's fine. But where the other kids listening? Right. That's where the more that you get them up and moving, and the more that you're bombarding their senses. That's why we call it multisensory. The more they're going to latch onto it. Right. Another thing that you could have done is you didn't have them bring it. Well, okay, no. Actually, you did with Muhammad. You did have him bring. He had trouble sleeping. Yeah. Okay. That was a really nice example. I didn't even know if that was part of the lesson.
No,
it wasn't. But you tied it in.
Yeah.
You tied it in, and I think there could have been more of that. I mean, they all have issues with communication, or else they wouldn't be in that class. But somehow, if you had been able to have them talk about times where they needed to be assertive, or that they weren't assertive, or they were assertive and that it worked. If you could have tied it to real life, to their personal, made it more personal, I think that they would have. I mean, they would walk away from that lesson, right, having internalized the idea and the objectives a lot stronger. If that makes sense. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned conflict. Okay. Again, what does conflict mean? So I kept coming up with, do they know what that means? Do they know what that means? How do you know how do you know that they know what that means? Right. So I think maybe next time when you're going through when you're planning a lesson and you've got the overall assertive communication again, which is big and broad, maybe go through and really hone in on some key vocabulary and somehow focus on that vocabulary in a way that is multisensory, that involves visuals, that involves videos, that involves role plays. And I mentioned that reading comprehension kind of comes into play because you gave them scenarios and they had to read through it, and it kind of worried me that maybe they didn't quite comprehend what was some of the words in there, and then that's fine. I mean, we want them to read. We don't want to completely eliminate reading, but how would you have checked because you were with Kareem the whole time, how would you have checked their comprehension? That's fine that you involved yourself with it, and Kareem kind of needed to be corralled.
Actually, you know what? I was, regarding this part, I did each one of them, they read it, like because they're in groups, so one member of the group were reading the scenario and we discuss it together. Okay. So I did not have it on the video.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. So you did check for comprehension.
Yes. Like we went in turns. Like each group started to talk about the scenario they had. Yeah. And we discussed it together. Then we moved. For example, I think Muhammad read his scenario with Nudi, and Dana, she did her with Jenna. So Jenna, she was keeping quiet, and Dana shared the scenario. And me and Kareem, we did it together. But at the end we did it all loud.
Yeah.
intern. So
Okay. Okay. And then at the very end, you recapped. You know, you said, "What is assertive communication?" Again, you ended up answering the question. That's okay. Just very eager to teach. But then you refer to respect, and I mean, I think with assertive communication, there are key. I mean, eye contact was one of them. I did hear you say, you know,
eye contact.
assertive. What is assertive? It's posture. It's eye contact. It's sorry.
No problem.
And I think that could have been like bullet pointed on the somehow I think you could have incorporated that the you know these are the key components to what assertive, because assertive is, you know,
Yes.
you
That's what I was telling them. Like you on the second part of the lesson, when we sat together and we tried to do like deep thinking about what do we know about assertive communication. So then we start with respect, polite, honest. Then we move to be body posture, voice tone, eye contact. So we got this all together in the on the map, or called the mind map of the meaning of assertive communication. But as you said, you're absolutely right. I did not look at it I didn't take and maybe focused on the keywords that cover this lesson. Yes.
No, but I mean, all in all, I'm sorry if I seem really critical.
It was
very
I'm here to
appropriate.
learn.
It was a good. I mean, I think it was structured well. You know, you had the intro, you had some activities, you did get them up and moving around a little bit. I just think you could have done so much more with it.
Okay.
In terms of bringing them in.
Engaged more in class.
And you know, there's a book, I should show it to you. It says "Never Work Harder Than Your Students." That's the title of it. And I think that sometimes we feel, especially when we're going into teaching, that we feel like if we're not up at the front of the class and we're not talking all the time, that we're actually not doing our jobs. No, very, very opposite. I think that
it's very interesting because it's totally right.
Well, but I mean, if you think about it, we don't want to be up at the front. I mean, obviously there's always going to be a need for it, but we don't want to be up there all the time. We want to be, you know, I use Daniel as an example. When you go into his classroom, very rarely do you ever see him at the front of the classroom. I have to look around. Where is he? He has front loaded the lesson. He's given the kids what they need to do, and then he's in the trenches. He's in the trenches with them. He's with them. He moves from group to group to really. I mean, and he is not doing a majority of the talking. The kids should be the ones talking. You set the stage and let them go, and then you monitor them. There's always a way to find how to involve them. Come up with your own scenario. You're going to be disrespectful and you're going to be respectful. Come up with your own. You don't even have to, you do have to plan. But you know what I mean? You can save yourself, quite honestly, a lot of work if you just, you know, you set the framework, and then the students are going to do this. The students are going to do this. And then, of course, you monitor. You don't just let them have free reign. But just kind of think about that. Think about how to turn it into a student-centered classroom versus a teacher-centered
class. Right. Actually, it's I really agree with you, because you know how much, like, when I was standing and I see don't respond, I feel the pressure. I feel like I'm gonna start sweating, like they don't understand. So that's why I keep repeating and saying the same thing. So it's
but if you structure a lesson correctly, you won't have that problem, and they won't even realize it is a lesson, because they'll be so involved with, especially the more you involve them in terms of their own lives. Everybody's got a story to tell. Everybody's been disrespected. Everybody's been respected. I mean, you know what I mean? And the more that they bring that in, they'll be like talking over each other to tell you stories. Like Nudie, I think Nudie would have been a lot more, well, I don't know. I mean, she's moody. She's moody. So who knows what kind of mood she would have been in. I don't know if any kind of lesson would have like pulled her out of what she was in. But I think you can set it up to where you can have that kind of lesson.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.